Hey, I'm Brett Whitaking, Lost Coast Outfitters. Today we are tying striper flies. This big sucker is a 3/0 jig style hook, big heavy eyes on it, epoxy head, and chartreuse over white. Pretty common colors for the bay and the delta and the ocean around here. The stripers like big, nasty bait fish flies, so that's what we're going to tie today. Hooks we're going to be using, these are Umpqua S506. I also use owner hooks a lot. The wide gape deep throat hook is a really good one. 3/0 is the bigger hook size. We often tie on 1/0s as well, especially when we're fishing in the bay. A little bit smaller, a little easier to cast. Pre-pinch this barb. I don't like to get stuck in the face with barbed hooks, so I always debarb my hooks in the vise. Got 6/0 Vivus thread, really strong thread for its size. White is a good color because it kind of goes with everything that's lighter-ish. These eyes are from a company called Dirty Water Fly Company out of Belgrade, Montana. And they are big, heavy eyes that help the fly with jigging action. So when you stop your strip, it really sinks. And a lot of times the fish will pick it up on the drop. A lot of ways to attach lead eyes or barbell eyes. I kind of have my own way, but there's a lot of ways. Just make sure they're really secure. That's the bottom line. These flies get beat up on the rocks a lot, and wood, and if you catch a lot of fish, they get chewed up in the fish's mouth. I'm gonna put a little bit of UV wader repair or UV knot sense on here. You can use head cement or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. Just adds a little bit more strength to it right out of the gate. So I like to tie my flash in. This is polar flash in a pearl. I like to tie my flash in first so it's on the bottom side of the hook so it doesn't foul as easily. You can tie it on the top as well. Not really a big deal, but I find it doesn't foul quite as much. I like to tie it in so it's sticking way, way out the back, nice and long, and then you can trim it later. I put some of this lateral scale in. This is micro lateral scale. Some of the coolest flashy material out there. It's got a kink to it, so it really catches the light well. Bless you, Steve. Tie that in there. Yeah, I like to fold some of it back. I don't need to cut the butts either because it's going to be all covered up, but that just helps it to stay secured down in the fly there. I'll do the same thing with my Farrar Blend, which is my main body material too. This stuff is Senyo's Predator Wrap, barred Predator Wrap. This adds a nice barring effect to the fly. I found that this stuff is a lot more durable if you tie it into the fly as opposed to, underneath on the belly or on the sides. It tends to be more durable inside the fly. There we go. Got some nice flash going there. Farrar Blend, white Farrar Blend. The belly, of course, this is a Clouser style fly, so it's going to flip over. So we're going to tie the belly in on top. I like Farrar Blend because it is synthetic and it doesn't absorb water, but it has a good bulk to it, and it's got good motion too. So it shows a good profile and it moves well, but it doesn't bulk up too much, and it sinks and down through the water column well. Whereas a lot of striper flies I see tend to be ultra bulky in the materials, and I don't think they sink very well when you fish them. And they don't have a good jigging action. They don't get down as deep. Start out with a little bit of taper here. I often fiddle with my flies after they're done being tied. I'll taper them and play with them for quite a long time, actually. We'll start tapering right now. I tie my flies a little bit smaller, a little shorter than some of those striper flies out there, a little more castable, which is a big deal to me. I want something that's actually castable. I don't want something that wears me out at the end of the day. More Farrar Blend right on top. Chartreuse and white, pretty common color. I think I said that before. I tie them in these in purple and chartreuse, gray and white, black over purple, all sorts of colors. If you notice how I tie these in, tie them in half and half, and when you fold this over, it creates a bigger profile. And again, without bulking up the, putting too much materials on there, it has a nice profile and still retains more castability. Fold that sucker back over, wrap over the butts there, make sure and split this puppy up a little bit. Pull it around on both sides of that hook, try not to stab yourself. Do a little bit of tapering. Looks okay for the moment. I'll put a little peacock over the top. I like a little darker back. Split that against the hook there. Taper that down a little bit. Again, I'm going to taper this more after the fly is done. Okay, now I'm going to put on sides. I like hackle tips on a lot of flies. Tie them on my steelhead flies. I tie them on my saltwater flies. I think that they add a lot of movement and a lot of wiggle, and I think the barring effect makes them look like salmon smolts or herring, any number of things. They just seem to be fishy. Try and get them flat along the sides as well. Try and get them even here too. Like so. Lash those suckers down. Try and get the length right about the end of the body, somewhere in there. Doesn't have to be perfect. Tier's discretion. And then these are Foxy brushes. It's made of Arctic Fox with some synthetic blend. I like to wrap this around the front. Gives it a little bit of a collar and a little look like it's got a collar, like you'd put schlappen on it or something like that. Put a little bit more UV knot sense on here just to strengthen it up. Again, these flies get beat up pretty good. Good to have some extra strength in there. That should about do it. So this is pre-spun up on a wire. These are made by Enrico Puglisi. Tie those suckers down well. I've got another pair of scissors right here that I like to use. Cut wire. These are old chintzy scissors. I don't like to use my good scissors. These are tungsten carbide. So I have to wrap. I usually do about 3 wraps. Stroke the fibers back as you wrap, and I like to wrap them right up next to the barbell eyes if I can. Tie that puppy off. To spin it, make sure I'm not wrapped over where I shouldn't be. Clip it. Wrap over it, give it some strength there. And I like to take my bodkin, pick that out a little bit, get those fibers kind of untangled. And mostly there, I'm going to whip finish in front of the eyes. And then I'm going to epoxy this whole head between the eyes here because that gives it a lot more durability. And again, these guys are getting beat up on the rocks, wood, getting hooked to lots of fish. We want these things to be durable. A lot of materials here. Also, I'm going to cut my flash a little longer than my Farrar's Blend there. Farrar's Blend. That flash to stick out. Looks like a happy little bait fish, or scared bait fish as it were. Epoxy right here. And I need this right here. The key with epoxy is mix it well, mix it thoroughly. If you don't mix it right, it will not harden. And then you have a fly with a gooey head. It'll get stuck in your box and stuck in your fingers and all sorts of nasty stuff. So really mix that epoxy up. This is 2-part epoxy from DevCon. 5-minute epoxy. Sets in about 5-6 minutes, something like that. And if you have a motorized turner with a wheel, that really helps so you can tie flies a lot quicker. And once you get your epoxy onto your fly, just transfer it to your wheel and it'll spin it for you. It'll self-level and it'll dry while you can tie more flies. Just make sure it gets kind of even through there. Get it right in the back of the eyes and then right through the front of the eyes there. Sometimes the little fibers will get trapped in the epoxy. Try to avoid it, but it's not the end of the world. It doesn't change the performance of your fly at all. Just looks nicer. Just dab all that epoxy right through there, right over all the thread, right through the middle of the eyes. Adds a little bit of weight too, so it gives it a little more jigging action, but mostly just adds a lot of durability. That's what we're worried about. Just like that, and then spin or put on your turner, and you are good to go. Striper City.